Okay, so welcome to our really awesome Healthy Habits for Humans class that has the best food ever, and I really appreciate all of you who have been bringing stuff. It very much alleviates my stress on Mondays, so I appreciate that. And thank you for all coming. It is wonderful to see all of your beautiful faces. I am very excited for really this whole entire semester and all of our guest lecturers. I have also very much appreciated that that relief, because it's been so nice to have a different face in here and just experience everybody else's wealth of knowledge. And the gentleman that we have tonight is definitely quite a wealth of knowledge in a plethora of different arenas. He is the medical director for Sophia Integrative Health down in Brookfield, where Dr. Sugar came from. He's also the owner. It is his baby and brainchild. And he is here to teach us a whole lot of things. I had to break it up into multiple reels if you have followed me on social media, because I didn't want to overwhelm anybody with like all of it in one, because it was just, it's amazing. So, with that being said, I give you Dr. Hoffman.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I love the enthusiasm. There's nothing more exciting than being in a group of people that are actually enthusiastic. When I first started out in practice 25 years ago, it was doing lectures to places like the Lions Club at 6 a.m. where the bankers were all falling asleep in their chairs going, what's this guy talking about, all the nonsense he's talking about. But we have about, I don't know, whatever time we got tonight, I basically got an hour to tell you everything that I've learned in the last 25 years. So,
yes.
All right, so there we go. So it'll be, thank you. It'll be speedy. I do a lot of lectures. Just a little bit about my background. So I started out in the military, decided that, in order to balance yin and yang, you should also, besides learning how to hurt, you should learn how to heal. So that was kind of a transition time. Went to martial arts school for a long time, did a lot of wilderness stuff. And then went back to medical school, specialty medical school, to learn how to do this. Did an internship in China. And then I've had my practice for about 25 years. And I got my hands in a lot of stuff. Ashley's totally correct. I'm like Jekyll and Hyde. So one part of me is this whole dealing with, integrative functional health. And then the whole other side of me is I also work up in my town as a volunteer. I'm the EMS lieutenant up there, work on a search and rescue team. I'm on a canine search and rescue team. So I've got that whole wilderness medicine side. Got a whole other business doing that. Kind of what's interesting is we were talking beforehand is it's like taking root skills but applying them to multiple different situations. So what I wanted to give you tonight was kind of more of like a global view of how to look at health, maybe something you haven't considered before, that you can apply what's useful and, like Bruce Lee said, apply what's useful, disregard the rest. So that's what my goal is. So I'm actually... I got this book out to the publishers now, or to the writers, working on writing this. It's called The 6 Dynamics of Health and Longevity, which is really a summary of what I've figured out just from seeing tens of thousands of patients over the years. And so I hope it's helpful to you. Okay, so the first question is, how do you define health? Because that's what I find that most people have some misunderstanding with. So how would you define health? How would you define health? The absence of symptoms. You're not allowed. No, you're not allowed. No cheating. What is your definition of health? For most people, it's the absence of symptoms or disease. They say that's healthy. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. Not really, right? So, for me, when patients come to me, the definition of health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely just the absence of disease. And we can see where we've kind of gone a little crooked in America now with that whole concept, which I commend all of you and applaud you for being in this program with Ashley, because you obviously are not buying into this, which is the state. And by the way, my side note, the beginnings of my lectures are bleak, and then the end is good because I give you solutions. So don't get sad. Don't get sad. So this was interesting. Of 17 nations, the quality and performance of healthcare is the lowest. It's at the bottom of the list. And yet, guess where the cost is? It's at the top. So the statistics show us that the U.S. has the poorest healthcare, and the highest cost of healthcare. So there's something really wrong with that picture. So nearly 70% of Americans are on at least one prescription drug, and more than half take two. Over the age of 60, it's almost guaranteed that a person is on between 1 to 3 medications. In the U.S. rate, by the way, and this just to kind of summarize this to save time, in the U.S. we actually have the highest incidences of infant mortalities, equal to places where people are giving birth on dirt floors.
Wow.
So these are some of the things that push me. Now, if you ever want to read something really interesting, this was written a number of years ago by Gary Null, who was a nutritionist. He wrote a whole article that was actually published called Death by Medicine. And what this goes on to describe is the fact that if you combine all of the causes of death in our country together, the number one leading cause of death in our country is the American medical system. Number 4, can anybody, so of course the ones that are more public is what? Heart disease, cancer.
Diabetes.
Yeah, well, it's heart disease, cancer, and stroke. So what is number 4? So those are 3. You know what number 4 is? You'll be blown away. Close, but no. Adverse drug reactions. Adverse drug reactions is the number 4 leading cause of death, and that's not by taking the wrong medication. That's taking the right medication and the body doesn't agree with it. Is the number 4 leading cause of death. What he wrote in here, which is really interesting, is that based on his studies and putting all of the numbers together, is that the published research showed 783,000 deaths per year due to the medical system. So that has to do with adverse drug reactions, medical mistakes, misdiagnoses. You put it all together. So that now heart disease still in our country is number 1, only hits 699. So you can see that we've got a problem with our system. So his conclusion to this was the number 1 killer in society is the healthcare system. That's what his conclusion was. And that we need to address this. So this was written over 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there was a national organization, all your taxes paid for this, for them to do an analysis of the healthcare system. They came up with a whole list of changes that should happen in the healthcare system. Okay, and they introduced that to the FDA and all of the policymakers. And guess how many of those changes occurred? 0. Nothing's changed in the last 10 years. So, you know, people always go, oh, well, you know, this is old information. I'm like, but it's the same. It hasn't changed. But here's the thing, and this is where what you're doing here and what Ashley is teaching you and what I do in my clinic that we need to understand is we have to have a new paradigm. And that is that to maintain and restore health and longevity, you need a different medical model or perspective. This is Buster. Buster Martin's pretty cool because he ran his marathon when he was 101 in 2008. So what is that? So what is my takeaway from that? Age doesn't mean anything. And everybody goes, oh, it's just I'm getting old. Those to me are excuses. You know, it's not that. It's about what we do and how we manage our health throughout the time that we have on this earth. So here's one thing that I like to write about is it's a healthcare quiz. Okay, so what is actually being healthy? And again, this is a different group because you're like my people, so I'm kind of excited about that. But here's how do you identify health? So here's a health quiz. And this, you don't have to answer this out loud, just think about it for yourself. Do you have any symptoms at all? PMS, any menopausal symptoms, hot flashes, body or joint pain, headaches? Do you take any kind of medication of any kind, even over-the-counter painkillers or antihistamines? That's question number 1 about health. Number 2, do you have the ability to sleep 7 to 8 hours with unbroken sleep every night? Number 3, a high level of energy for 12 hours continuously. Right? Do you have a positive emotional outlook and are socially outgoing? Normal urination every 3 to 4 hours. Normal bowel movements once to twice a day. Normal appetite. Normal sex drive, normal body temperature ranging 98 to 98.5 to 98.8, unmedicated blood pressure under 120 over 80, for women 110 over 70, no more than 40 points between them. Regular, if you're still in menstrual cycles, do you have a regular menstrual cycle? Perspiration after 15 minutes of exercise. Interesting that health is that if people who perspire are healthy. If you're not perspiring, there's something wrong. Interestingly enough. Normal regular resting heart rate, 60 to 68 beats per minute. Normal breathing heart rate. Be able to, and I added this one. be able to relax and enjoy doing nothing. That's a state of healthy mind. Being able to relax.
It's a lot
It's
of people.
complete-
A lot of people have trouble doing that.
Absolutely. That's
I
why.
have no problem doing
That's
that.
why I threw it in here
My
because.
husband has a problem with me doing that, but I don't have a problem with it.
That's why I threw this in here, because I hear this a lot too. And I think it's the state of our society. It's just something, I'm not here to criticize anybody, but it's here to make people ponder a little bit, like, what is actual health? So if you answered no to any of those questions, in other words, if there's something in there that you went, ooh, what it tells you is that what that is your body is turning on the warning light switch to tell you that something's wrong. It doesn't mean that you have a disease. It means that the body's malfunctioning, right? So this survey consists of basic body function. If your symptoms are signs of the body's way to communicate with us. And oftentimes we ignore those. So for example, I always talk about this. If the engine light on your car went on, would you go get it checked out by a mechanic? Yes. Right? Yeah. Or like my wife said, she goes, I went in the car the other day, the engine light's on. I go, what? I go, how long has this been on? She goes, I don't know. And then in one of these lectures, I had one guy say to me, he goes, well, I just keep some black electrical tape and I just stick it over the top of there. And then I don't see the light and I'm good. And what's interesting is we treat our health very much the same way. So that's just something to consider or ponder. Now, here's the principles by which everything in my practice revolves. Because if I didn't believe this fully and wholly, I couldn't practice what I practice. Because I couldn't honestly say to someone, I can help you, if I didn't believe all of these next three principles to be true. So the number one, the body heals itself. Can we deny that? It absolutely heals, right? We were endowed with that, right? It's amazing. So if you break a bone, put it back together, what does the doctor do? They just put it in place. They don't do anything. The body does it, right? If you cut your finger, what happens?
Heals itself.
Stops bleeding, heals itself, wound, and then it's gone. So we know that this is the case. Our internal organs do the same thing. Our nervous system does the same thing if it has the optimal opportunity. Oh. So that leads to principle number 2. So why is it that people have conditions that go on for year after year? If the body's not healing, there's got to be a reason. And that is the bane of my existence for the last 25 years, is how do I find what that is? So, in order for the body to heal, there can be no obstructions of any kind to the natural course of healing. Is aging normal? Yes, it is. But aging poorly is not. Okay? So the natural course of healing is, why can someone have symptoms? Because there's an obstruction to the healing process. There's something in the way. There's got to be a barrier. And that's what we do in my practice. And here is the last principle, very simply. If you find the source of the obstruction or the deficiency or whatever it is, and you remove it or repair it, then guess what the body's going to do?
Repair itself.
It's going to heal itself. So that is the premise by which everything I do. Now, simple concept, not so easy in practice. Why is that? Because the human body is complicated. It's not that simple, right? There is lots of things that our body does that we don't even know yet. The brain is this whole mysterious universe that nobody's even figured out. The nervous system is massively complicated. Our immune systems are incredibly complicated. But here's some of the things that can obstruct you. The autonomic nervous system, that's your fight or flight system versus your rest and relax system, like we talked about, being able to relax. If the body's always in fight or flight, it's going to damage it. So looking at that autonomic nervous system, the ANS is like the operating system on your computer. It just works on its own. You're not supposed to think about it. There's organs, hormones, glands, and tissues. Something in Chinese medicine that they call qi and blood circulation. A very confused and misunderstood concept, by the way, because if I asked anybody in here what qi is, what would you say?
Some sort of
Energy?
You'd say some kind of energy. What did you say? Some kind of food?
food, yeah, cheese.
It's possible. Yeah. Yeah, cheese.
Thai.
Why not cheese? Some people say it's a martial art, like Tai Chi or
Yeah.
or Tai Cheese.
The
I don't
cheese
know.
is the center or the core of the body or something.
So you see, so energy is the most common term that was used in Chinese, that was westernized in Chinese medicine. Guess what? The word energy in relation to this word qi doesn't even exist in the Chinese language dictionary.
Oh, wow.
See, I don't have Dr. Suger with me. I need him with me here. But there's actually 30 different definitions of the word qi, and not one of them is energy. That was actually a misunderstanding that was brought over to the West in the translation of the books. The actual term chi means vital air. That's actually what the calligraphy says. It's actually steam over a bowl of rice. So you were close, see? It's food. It's food, it's nourishment. See, you all laughed at him. You all laughed, and he was pretty close. It's about nourishment. So what they were talking about is basically what they were talking about was oxygen. And they were also talking about communication, how the body communicates, brain to body, body to brain, right? Now,
So that makes sense where the energy part might have gotten mixed in there.
Exactly. So it was not to get off track because we could be here all night, but it was a Western banking clerk that translated the first Chinese medical textbook. A bank. we can't blame everything on that. That's not nice. But anyway, so it was a mistranslation. We know much more about that now. We know that this idea of qi is everything from cellular communication to, in fact, my opinion, is only my opinion, is that we don't have the science and technology to understand exactly the depth of what qi is yet.
Right.
That would be my opinion. So, and blood. So let's talk about blood. Blood circulation. So blood circulation, we think about oxygen and blood. In Chinese medicine, we think about blood as actually the nourishment, carrying the nourishment to the tissues. So did you ever ponder, this is like stupid stuff that I do when I'm contemplating my navel, is how does like a carrot end up being a nutrient that serves your body? Well, there's a process, right? And then how does that nutrient get to, my liver to help with detoxification? That's where the blood circulation comes. The Chinese made it simple. Blood circulation. You take all those nutrients that your body extracts from food, and then it brings it to the target tissues, and it carries away all of the toxins of cellular respiration and debris. So blood has a critical component. It brings all the nourishment in, brings all the toxins out. So good blood flow and good communication is the basis of how you get rid of obstructions. Any obstruction of this process will cause issues down the road. So now, my 6 dynamics. You've been waiting. I could tell you're super excited to hear what they were.
Can't wait.
Can't wait, I know. Well, I broke it down because there's actually 1 through 3 in my idea is the part that we help our patients with. That's the doctors who are trained like me. What we do is principles 1 through 3 are the things that we want to help you improve for the quality of your health. And then principles 4 through 6 are the things that you do to maintain and restore your health. We can't do it without good patients that help us. That is the difference. We work as a team in my practice with my patients. That's why I always do a consult first. I always consult with the patient first because I want to know, are we going to work together? And if we're not, maybe this isn't the place. I wouldn't say that. I want to know, like, can I help you? Can you help yourself? And can we work together? And there needs to be a collaboration because not everybody fits that mold. So anyway, principle number 3 employs it's the disciplines of functional and East Asian medicine. It's how we analyze the body. The things that you might not see are going on. That's what we're looking at. And then the 4 through 6 are the principles that you can do outside of me and outside of my practice that you can do to help yourself. So those are the principles. And they look like this. So 1, 2, 3 these are the core of function that we try and restore in our patients. Autonomic system function, we talked about that. ANS function, getting that person, helping them get out of that sympathetic, that fight or flight mode where their body is always racing for fight or flight, which guess what it can't do when it's in fight or flight?
Yep.
You can't heal and you can't repair, you can't rest, you can't digest. Your body can only do one or the other. So I find that that's a core thing we have to help, especially with what we have going on in the world today. It's really hard. And after COVID and all that, and we live in the Northeast. This place is just it's coming from everywhere. The second thing is organ and gland function. So that's your endocrine system. That's about hormones and hormone regulation and about how the organs are functioning. We always think that, we don't really think about this that much, but the liver has to detox properly. The lungs have to perfuse and extract oxygen, right? And by the way, new thing that we know about lungs, they actually help produce blood, which is kind of interesting. Blood cells, red blood cells. So something new. It's a new. So we're still learning stuff about the body, right? The spleen and the pancreas have to process. So all of the organs and glands have to function. And then, of course, the qi and blood circulation has to be optimal. It has to work. The body has to be fluid, flexible, and be able to move. Now, the 4 things, and these are the challenges that you're gonna have is optimal rest and restoration, optimal exercise, movement, and activity, and optimal diet and nutrition. They look simple on the outside, but they're actually really not. Because a lot of people, like, I'll have somebody say, like, optimal rest, and they're like, oh yeah, I rest all the time. I sit down and I watch, 15 TV shows, and then I do a puzzle, and then I'm not calling anyone out here, by the way. But and then I read a book, and and then with optimal exercise, patients have been my best education. I had this one person who I wanted her to exercise. She had such stress going on. She had a hormone issue going on. It was the estrogen, progesterone. Anyway, I said to her, well, I just want you to do like walk for 15, 20 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week. She goes, I do walk. I walk every day. I'm a world-class power walker. And I went, no, I want you to saunter.
Yeah.
And she goes, optimal exercise and movement is not always just like pumping weights and doing it. In fact, there's been studies done. Linda Loma University did a study that showed that if you do exercise that you like, that you generate more endorphins and opioids, endogenous opioids, than doing something because you think you have to. Which means pick an exercise that you like. You don't have to be a gym rat. You do what you like. Yes?
Question.
Yeah, sure.
I heard something about people who do like massive cardio for like an hour that actually produces cortisol. It's actually worse for them
Oh, yeah.
because they're not doing other things. They're just like-
Marathon running is the hardest thing on your heart.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know.
That's
Thank
it. In fact, there's a really funny YouTube video out there. It's a Chinese, one of the older Chinese doctors. He say, your body only have so many beats in your lifetime. Don't use them up too quick. Okay. A little extreme, but it was interesting. And then also optimal diet and nutrition. And that's a lot of what Ashley does with you is, what does that actually mean? How do we do that in a society where you go to the stores and you can't even trust what's in Whole
That's
Foods
like the
anymore?
hardest part, I think.
It's really, well, I think a
Everything
lot of it is. I think this is, because this is all lifestyle activities. And so but I wouldn't minimize the others. These 3 are equal. Because I think that if your diet is not perfect, but you can relax and you can meditate and you can get the mind to calm, to some extent you're going to compensate for other things,
That's good to know.
right? So I think it's about balance. My dynamics are all about balance. So but you're absolutely right in that optimal diet and nutrition is really tough in America, really tough. Anyway, so let me move on a little bit because we could get bogged down with diet, because I know there's a lot to it and we all want to slay that, but it's there's some solutions I have to that. But anyway, diagnosis. So in my practice, critical to anything is first find out what's the problem. So again, going back to that survey, the first thing you do is get information. What's happening? Before doing actions. A lot of times in this, and the reason I bring this up is because there's a lot of promotional things that you're going to get bombarded with that are not necessarily going to address your issue. I have patients come in all the times with bags of supplements because they watched something on TV and research shows that taking this is going to make you walk on water and swim in sand. So now they're taking it. And, or whatever it might be. Whatever it might be. So in my practice, somebody will come to me and say, I got Lyme disease. And in my head I'm saying, prove it. So I'm going to first find out. I'm fatigued all the time and I have body and joint pain. So in my head, I'm like, okay, well, first off, and you want to know, this has really served me well. And by the way, when I talk about me, just so you know, you had Dr. Suger here, this is the way I train all my docs to think too. So they're thinking the same way I am because it's important to me. And the reason that this is important is because, for example, I'll give you one example of a patient interaction that was interesting. I had a patient come to me with full body, like a polymyalgia kind of neuropathy where he felt like his whole body was getting stuck with pins and needles all the time, right, for 15 years. I said, well, why don't you bring me your records and I'll take a look at them. And he was like, So finally he did. It was this thick.
Oh my God.
Right? So I spent hours pouring through this, because he wanted to tell me he had whatever he had. I poured through it and I found a report that was done 10 years earlier that was positive for Lyme disease. And I went in and I said, did they ever address this? Well, he said, I don't have Lyme disease. And I go, it's right there on the test. It wasn't even like an interpretation. It was like clear. Mm-hmm. So the guy ended up having Lyme disease. and after that, he left me and went to another specialist. Kind of interesting. So really kind of weird. But anyway, so I learned that don't just rely, and then I've had other people tell me, I got Lyme disease, and I've tested them every which way for Sunday, and ended up being something like a liver detoxification issue. So I always try and go in completely neutral, and go, okay, let's find out what's happening. Because there's tons of Western conditions too that have no root cause, right? You can name them, right? Hypertension, what's the cause of hypertension? I don't know, depends on the person. Right? Fibromyalgia. What is the diagnosis of fibromyalgia? 2 months chronic pain at 11 out of 15 tender spots. Why? I don't know. Okay, so they're GERD, IBS, restless leg syndrome. All of these are diseases that are labels they're giving so that they can then apply a medication to those labels.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of those were created. So, you know, or what we call like IBS, for example, is called a disease of, what do they call it? A diagnosis of elimination. So they've eliminated everything else. We don't know what it is.
And that's
so
like
it's
functional
IBS.
abdominal pain. It goes
Functional,
along with
yeah,
that.
they're coming up with more of these, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So the start of everything is figuring out what's going on. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is that, or I wanted to make this point. Symptoms alone are a poor judge of a healthy body. Because 10% is the symptoms, 90% is what's below the surface. Oftentimes I have patients come to me and sometimes their condition is going to take 3, 6, 9 months to clear up. But they're like, well, my symptoms haven't changed. And I'm like, that's because we're working down here, not up here. So think about that when you're dieting, when you're making changes in your diet, nutrition, and exercise, is that you're working down here. You're not working up here. You might not see immediate result. Something like a magnesium deficiency, once you change your diet to a high magnesium food, like a broccoli or something like that, could take months to restore. So you got to give your time, you got to be patient, let nature evolve at its own time. Okay, so that's the one thing I want to consider. But for us, we look at a number of different things outside of symptoms. The Dr. Sugar may have went through some of this, right? About what we look at, face, nails, ears, tongue, the body, what we call the Shen, which is the spirit. Like I can look at a room and you can see, you know, how a person's presenting. Some people call it your aura. Sometimes it's just, I mean,
What do you see?
you guys are vibrant. You guys are vibrant.
We're great.
You're all, that's right, full of energy, all of you. Yeah, don't do that to me. I'm telling you, well, you know what I'm talking about. Like you can see that person, that person that glows. That in Chinese medicine, that's a Shen. So oftentimes, what I do is I actually watch the patient walk in from their car. See, you're learning all my secrets tonight.
Wow.
I watch them when they're not watching me. And then
That's
when they're not
interesting.
putting on that aura, putting on that presentation. It'd be interesting what you
that's
see in people's
interesting.
faces outside of that. So that's something that the Chinese doctors in our diagnosis that we look at. Listening, smelling, voices, words, self-talk, body odors. So voice tells us a lot about somebody's affectation, right? Palpation. So we palpate on meridians. Meridians are pathways in the body. They communicate to us. It's the body's sensing system. Pulses and then asking and inquiry. Notice how I put asking last. Because to me, it's not always that. People tell you what they want you to hear. You know, not on purpose. So this is one of the maps that we use. So people will go, oh my gosh, how'd you look at my ear and know I had a thyroid problem? I'm like, it's just training. It's a different type of medical school. You're doing a different type of analysis.
It's pretty cool. I've
So-
only seen it on the feet, but I've never seen it on the face.
Yeah,
I've
there's
never
actually
seen it on
about,
the face either.
that's a great point. So there's about 30 different microsystems in the body, but the body is sure. The body is the
So
best
cool.
sensing system. In the body, you can see all kinds of stuff. So for example, see the kidneys? So kidney is energy. You know the kids get the sugar shiners?
Yeah.
The black under their eyes? They shouldn't have that. That's from exhaustion. Their adrenals are exhausted. So
When
in
kids
Chinese
weren't
medicine,
sleeping, right?
yeah,
That's
so
what-
Chinese
right?
medicine, there is no adrenal gland, but there's the kidneys. So that's there. Lungs over in here, the heart, right? The intestines, kidney, bladder, and the liver. Kind of interesting.
Why are
So
liver
girls
in
that
the
have mixed
eyebrows?
lips means that they have.
Well, what's that?
Why the lip, why is?
Well, I don't know. 'cause
I'm just curious.
That's where one of the pathways to the liver
Okay.
meridian goes.
So if you're breaking out in any of those areas, is that
You can look
definitive?
at food. So this gets into the complex component of the 5 elements of eating. The 5 elements. So remember, all foods fall into 5 categories of elements in the Chinese diet.
Okay.
So if you're eating foods, let's say, that are too spicy, it might be too much, and so you'll get a red nose, right? So every food has a different energetic component. In the Chinese medicated diet, you want those 5 elements to be balanced. So those foods, and I'm going way off the charts in this one, but are sweet, spicy, or acrid. I gotta remember all. Bitter, sour, and salty. Those are the five flavors that they call it. So which ones do you think Americans have primarily in their diet? Salt and sugar. Salt and sweet.
Yeah.
Right? So that creates an imbalance, according to Chinese medicine, it creates an imbalance in the body's organ system. So that's why you want, so for example, going back to your question, so if part of that is breaking out, you might want to balance your diet in other areas. Right? If you're breaking out, or if you're breaking out in general, right, where is it here? Stomach, spleen, and intestines, so breaking out around the mouth, that kind of thing.
That's interesting.
So yeah, these are all the ways that we announce. So being a doctor, I look at blood tests and this, which is kind of a weird twist, right? Because that's not what you get in a regular office. I don't think that you're. Now there's also the tongue.
Yeah, the
Oh
tongue
my
is the one that way,
So now you can look at. And by the way, you'll all be looking in the mirror tonight when you get home.
Absolutely.
All
Yeah.
right. Now, what's cool about this is, so the Chinese medicine evaluation of the tongue looks at a variety of different sources. But what's really interesting about this is a lot of them correlate with Western medicines. For example, this tongue right down here, blood deficiency, dizziness, fatigue, palpitations, poor concentration, memory, insomnia, women's problems. Guess what that relates to in Western medicine? Any ideas?
None of course.
No? What do you think that's going to relate to? When I see that tongue, I know what test to do. I'll give you a hint. I do a ferritin test,
I was
which
gonna
would
say
be
anemic.
iron deficiency. It's an anemia tongue. Chi deficiency is one we see with poor diet, so that's the scallops on the outsides of the tongue. And also liver problems too. You'll see redness on the outside layers of the tongue. The other, chi stagnation down here, stressed, tendency to be depressed, upset, unstable emotional state. Really interesting that every anxiety case that I see, the tip of the tongue is red.
Really?
Almost every single one of them. Right? So very interesting that. And
Yeah, look at my tongue.
And then the underside of the tongue, you actually have 2 veins, they're called the sublingual veins,
Right.
that are closely related to coronary artery disease. So we were talking about how I was supposed to do this on cardiovascular, and I didn't, sorry, I did this instead. But when I do cardio, one of the things we look at that your doctor might is we look underneath the tongue, and if you have these stagnant sublingual veins, we got to be concerned about cholesterol, and we got to be concerned. So you see, you got to understand that when this medicine evolved, there was no MRIs, there were no blood tests, so they had to become masters of observation.
Right.
And so what my job has been during my career has been, how do I correlate that with Western medicine? And there's a complete connection. Complete connection. So these are the different tongues. So my favorite story about this, my first month in practice, this kid comes in and you have this blood stasis tongue where the blood is where it's like black and all that kind of stuff. They say it's like imminent heart problems. And so this kid comes in and I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna, there's something, you gotta bring him to, and so the mother, God bless her, goes to me, he just had a licorice. Oh.
That's funny.
So, yeah, clinical experience is different than the textbooks. And then there's the pulses. So the pulses are different as well. So this is where the real mastery of Chinese medicine comes from. There's 28 different pulse qualities. So when we feel the pulse, there's 3 different directions. The lung, so on each side, the right side, left side, and we feel these pulses and they feel different. Now, you know what the awesome thing is? I actually secretly, when I work on the ambulance, and I'm working on emergency cases, whatever they might be,
You're doing
I
it.
get to feel the pulse to see what acute pulses look like. So a lot of my colleagues don't get that, which is kind of neat. But so for example, on the right side, you have the 3 positions, which is the lung, the spleen and stomach, the lung, large intestine, spleen and stomach, and the kidney and adrenals. And on the opposite side, you have the heart, small intestine, the liver, gallbladder, and the kidney, adrenals again. So by feeling the pulse, we're looking for quality, we're looking for not just strength and rate, like a Western doctor is, but we're looking at the quality, the strength of it, the depth of it, all of these different things. So there's a lot that you can really see in the pulse. You can pick up things like, you can pick up coronary issues. You can pick up digestive issues, GERD. People have come to me and you can feel the pulse because it's interesting. And again, it's not magic. It's just knowing a certain
You're gonna be checking all
certain
of this as we're
information.
leaving tonight.
Yeah, so for example, like if you feel the pulse on the middle side, if it's floating on the right side middle position, and if it's floating on the surface, oftentimes related to acid reflux. So kind of interesting. So some people don't even know they have it.
What's a triple warmer?
Triple warmer is the Chinese version of the endocrine system. So kind of. Yeah, they call it the triple burner. So you have the upper, middle, and lower. It's how the body extracts energy from different sources and moves it around the body. It's kind of complicated, but I think they were talking about hormones in the endocrine system. Yeah. But then we also have traditional things too. And so I like it because I've been being that I put my foot in both worlds. What's nice is you're able to see this, what we consider an esoteric medicine, correlated with Western tests.
Right.
So it's kind of neat. But anyway, so we do lab tests, blood tests, looking at the nervous system, that kind of thing, all your functional testing. Functional testing is different than what you might see in a Western world. For example, if somebody came in and told me they have Lyme disease, I don't run a standard test. I did that lecture last week, which was on Lyme disease. So for example, the Lyme test that you do in your conventional doctor's office has a 50% false negative. In other words, it's only right half the time.
Yeah.
And the average time to diagnosis for Lyme disease in America is between 3 to 8 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So
it's
for
crazy.
chronic Lyme. So, that's a good example of, so what we do is a lot of functional testing. We use different types of tests and blood tests. And they're out there, and I'm not just saying we do this. Lots of naturopaths, lots of integrative physicians do the same lab testing. It's off the shelf. So now, let's go through the 5 disciplines to restore your health. Okay, so this was written about in the original book called the Wang Ti Neijing, which was the book on the 5 disciplines of practice, which was acupuncture, secondary therapies, dietary therapy, which is, the Chinese medicated diet, herbal and supplement theory, and lifestyle. I changed the word lifestyle to modernize it. It was actually called right thinking.
Oh.
I like that.
Yeah, but I changed it to make it a little bit more generic. But right thinking is that the original Chinese doctor said that in order for the patient to heal, they have to believe that they can. And if they can't, they won't heal. So I've changed that to lifestyle because this whole stress thing that we're all under now, and we don't really manage stress well in America. But those are the 5 disciplines. And that's how we get and help our patients restore their bodies back to health. This is actually pictures of meridians. Is anybody familiar with what acupuncture meridians are? Did you have any
We had
experience?
a tapping lecture
Okay.
last time.
So-
And Dr. Seaver talked about it, yeah.
So this is the original picture, ancient picture of the meridians. These were pictures taken through microscopy in the 90s called Bonham channels that they found the acupuncture meridians actually do physically exist in the human body.
Oh, that's
Wow.
cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And what it has is it is undifferentiated stem cells, hyaluronic acid, which is lubricant for the joints, has all kinds of, and undifferentiated stem cells means that it can become whatever. So pure potential. So kind of cool. And then the acupuncture points actually fall in areas where this stuff pools. So it's kind of interesting. So they know that there's increased nitric oxide in acupuncture points. There's an increased electrical resistance in those areas. So any doctor who says that acupuncture is woo-woo actually just doesn't know the research on it. So I think that's kind of cool. I put that up there because, and then there's blood vessels. So we think about the blood, we always think about the heart and the big blood vessels, but this was actually from the body exhibit.
That's a cool exhibit.
That was a really awesome example.
You have to be able to circulate blood and nutrition to every one of your tissues. Imagine how difficult that could be. So I put this in here because this is just the vessel system that's actually feeding the hands, the brain, the body, the tissues, all around the organs. And that's what we talk about when we talk about blood flow. So to keep it simple, if you step on the hose that's watering your system, the plants are going to die. Your organs are not going to function if you have a restriction of blood flow. Free flow of blood and circulation in the body's going to heal. All right, so when it comes to acupuncture, here's the size of the needle compared to all the others. So acupuncture needles, I can fit 5 needles into an injection needle. They're very small.
My 5-year-old does it without a problem.
Exactly, yeah. So, and then secondary therapies that we have, cupping, gua sha, moxibustion, there's all kinds of different things. So acupuncture is just one component. I always see that things like acupuncture are just a tool in the toolbox. It's not the medicine itself, there's all kinds of other tools. Now, the basic concept of Chinese diet, so this is where we get into, is a proper diet is the cornerstone for successful treatment. This is where I found, this is because we were talking about this earlier, this is where I find one of the biggest challenges for me helping patients, is that we're helping them restore body function, and then their diet's counteracting it.
Right, yeah.
You know,
They don't
and
know.
you gotta, yeah, they don't know, you gotta pull it all together. So a diet high in whole grains, beans, vegetables, fruits is optimal, and then honoring the flavors, temperatures, and qualities of the foods work in favor of body function. So getting that whole balance of those 5 different flavors is critically important. So, for example, you don't want to have pea soup. You don't want to have pea soup in the middle of the summer. Doesn't make sense, right? Too thick, too heavy, right? The body can't deal with it. It doesn't nourish the body. It does sound good, but on a cold day.
Yeah.
So you see, that's the idea of looking at these flavors and looking at these things. For example, increasing things like during the summer, increasing moisture-rich and water-rich foods like watermelon. Or things like, watermelon's 97% water. So celery is a great source of silicon, which is part of the molecular structure of bone. Bones are 23% sodium, and so is celery.
Oh, I
So-
love that.
But
Here's
eat the
the carrot,
whole, but
yeah.
eat the whole vegetable, not
Yes.
just juicing.
So carrots are filled
Right.
with vitamins and
Right.
antioxidants, and they look like the eye. And so that's why, and interesting, now science supports that that's actually correct.
And the beets is like for the heart. And
How about walnuts and
That's
the
right.
brain?
That's
So
right, the
cool.
omegas, right?
That's your omega-3 fatty acids, which help support brain function.
That's right.
And I have like dozens of these, but I think these are the only 3 that I put in here. But there's all kinds,
So
you can look at all of these
That
different
was so
things.
exciting.
Yeah, isn't it neat?
That was a little tease there.
Yeah, it's a little tease of what you can look up, and you can probably look these up online, but it's interesting. Tomatoes look like the chambers of the heart. when you
Yeah,
cut it.
yeah.
And there's something in it called lycopene.
Yep.
Lycopene is good for cardiovascular health. So keep in mind here that our early ancestors consumed the same amount of sugar in 1 year that we consume in 1 day.
Oh, Lord.
Yes.
So, you take, for example, like I used to bring a sample of that. This is something you can do sometime. Put the amount of sugar, take like a sweet leaf iced tea, and dump it out and put the amount of teaspoons of sugar in there. It's 27 grams. It takes up
Wow.
1/3 or more of the bottle. That's through one. According to the American Heart Association, we're not supposed to have more than 4 teaspoons of added sugar per day. Teenagers are having between 17 and 25. So why is heart disease still on the top of the list? There's your example.
It's done by design.
Yeah. That's why in type 2 diabetes is epidemic.
It's done by design.
All right, so this involves the ability to positively look in life. We talked about this. Practicing activities to change your current thinking and reduce the effects of stress, on the body, like Tai Chi, Qigong, and meditation, yoga, things like that are also important, right? Those are those things that, in my mind, the idea here is that we have to change our patterns. This, by the way, I know you mentioned diet, and knowing the diet is so hard, but I have to tell you, from my experience of 25 years and seeing over 80,000, doing over 80,000 treatments and seeing over 10,000 patients, the biggest problem is what I call psychosclerosis. Hardening of the brain and thought and not being able to change. That inflexibility, that people are stuck. Oh, I'm always like this. This is the way I've always been. I've heard that more. So I actually find, because this is subtle, is that this is much more difficult to change than your diet. The diet is very concrete, very young, but changing how you're thinking about the world and the world around you is so difficult. So here's a good one. Modern research shows that physically complaining rewires your brain to be depressed and anxious. So according to Clemson University, everyone complains from time to time. But you should minimize it, because the more you do it, the more you're training your brain into negativity. Right? So this makes sense. But what you want to be mindful of is if you're being excessively negative. So things can happen, but the idea is to have a positive outlook. And I think the community that you're in, all of you seem very positive, and I think that's because it's part of what you're involved with, and I think that helps you with this, maybe more than a lot of people.
Well,
But this
Or I think our attitudes brought us, it's,
could
you'd
be
be aligned
one or
with
the
us
other,
too.
yes.
What do you mean by physically complaining? Complaining about physical ailments or?
It could be that too. Oh, my knee always hurts.
Yeah.
It's always been there.
Or
My
is it
parents
just
had high
speaking, like,
cholesterol.
Or is it
I'm
physically
Both.
complaining?
Yes. Oh, the world stinks. There's always a problem. You know, nobody's nice anymore. Everything's too expensive.
The power of the tongue.
It's all very, it's so,
Or you
it could be
get like fine wine
anything.
and get better with age.
Exactly.
Through whining?
So this is my Tai Chi class that I taught back in the day. This is actually one of my instructors. This was at Danbury Hospital's rehab. So we were teaching Tai Chi at Danbury Rehab. There are a lot of studies that show that moderate aerobic activity can relieve pain, reduce effects of stress, strengthen the immune system and the heart. Interesting studies on Tai Chi is that seniors that practice Tai Chi had lower incidences of upper respiratory infections and pneumonia than the other, more so than the flu shot. So they did better than people that got the flu shot and didn't practice that.
Because the expansion
So,
of the lungs.
This is just a bunch of studies, don't worry about it. Everything from cognitive, like brain activity, to changes in heart rate and cortisol, to changes in, this was rehab, cardiovascular and ventilatory responses. So when people practice Tai Chi after having a heart attack, they recovered better. So all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of science on it. And I think that it's about balance. So if you're doing, let's say if you're exercising 7 days a week, my suggestion is that you do like a hard physical exercise 3 times a week, and 3 times a week you do something that's more balanced. You know, that's why I kind of was discouraged about the whole everything in the Bhagwan yoga, all going to hot yoga and powering it out. Because I'm like, is that really, like it's too much. It's too much. So there's got to be a balance, and that's all we're talking about. This is a picture from China during COVID. Is that actually to help patients recover from COVID, they were teaching them this exercise called the 8 Treasures, Bhagwan Jin. Do I have time to go through some of these?
Keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to do these with you. Okay, so the
Let's do it, ready to go.
so the 8 pieces, the 8 pieces of brocade is there. It's basically 8 simple exercises. The first one is called hand supporting the sky. It's like an internal organ massage. Drawing bow is to benefit the lungs. Pressing heaven and earth is for the spleen, stomach, and digestion. Turning the head left to right relaxes the neck muscles. Pointing the tailbone benefits the heart. And then both hands reaching to the ground is for the kidneys and the waist. Lifting the fists to generate energy. And then bouncing on the toes is like a lymphatic massage. Did you know that 20 minutes of bouncing or 15 minutes moves your whole lymphatic system?
Nice.
That's why you need physical activity and movement. Because
20 minutes of bouncing?
Yeah,
Like
4
a
times.
trampoline, like a rebound.
Yeah.
Or you can just do this. So
Or one of those plates that I.
there's the exercises.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to go, you get to stand up. The first exercise is lifting to the heavens. So you're going to inhale and you're going to press out towards the sky. And then you're going to inhale. We're going to do it 3 times. And press towards the sky. And then inhale. And press towards the sky. Okay, bring the hands back down. The second exercise is drawing the bow. So what you're going to do is you're going to inhale. And then you turn and pull like you're pressing with or pulling back a bow to shoot a bow and arrow. And slightly shift your weight to the back leg and open up the chest. And then you're going to come back to the center and inhale. And then you're going to press out to the other side. And then inhale. And press. And then inhale. And press. Good. Now back to the center, we're going to do, it's called pressing heaven and earth, or up and down. So you inhale, and then one hand goes up, one hand goes down. And then inhale, and then switch. And then inhale, switch, and inhale, switch. And you don't want to force it, you just want to use your head back and forth. That's 2, 3, and I missed 3. 4, 5,
Good for the neck.
and then 6. Okay, and then we're gonna bring our hands up and we're gonna put them on our hips. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna shift to the right, kind of push your hip back. It's called shaking the tail. And then back, and then
Sorry, I shook it.
you can shake if you want. It's pretty free form. And then shift. And then shift. And then shift.
This one is the easiest.
Yeah, this one's easy. And shift. This is good for the heart, actually.
That's good.
If you notice, when your hands are on your hip, it actually moves the chest, too, right? So now what you're doing is you're massaging the heart and pericardium. Good, okay. And then back, and now we're gonna bring our feet up a little bit more. This is for the kidneys, so we're gonna inhale. And then just let your body drop. And then we're gonna inhale. And let your body drop. Good. Inhale. Let the body drop. Good. And then coming back up. And then the last two exercises. One, this is to build energy. Now, I'm not going to do it the way I used to do it in class, which is you're supposed to go, ha! And like yell. It lets out all that extra energy, but do you want to do that? Come on, let's do it. I'm not going to look at you because then I'll laugh. So. All right, so you're going to inhale, and then you're just going to punch out, and you're going to say ha, 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 ha. Very good. Inhale, other arm, and ha. Good.
That was loud.
Ha! Ha! Okay, 2 more. Ha! And 1 more. Ha! Good. And then you end the exercise by rocking back and forth on the feet. Okay, back and
I
forth.
do that when I'm waiting in line, I'm like, well.
Yeah.
I go side to side, not forward, back.
So that's all 8 pieces of brocade. Doesn't take long to do. So to add to a regimen or something, if you want to add it to part of your exercise, it's easy to do, right? So we just shake. Okay, and pretty simple to do. Okay, good. Now, I'll give you the shaking exercise, which is goofy, but works so well without the rebounder. It's just basically what you do is relax and just let your body shake up and down.
For 15 minutes?
You can start with a couple minutes, but yeah.
When you're waiting at the bus stop.
Yeah, you can do 15 minutes. And you don't have to do it a lot.
I'm gonna do this
Remember,
with my kids in class
remember
tomorrow.
that your lymphatic system is the second circulatory system of the body. So slightly bring your elbows up, drop them down, because those lymphatic vessels underneath the armpits,
Oh, yeah.
right? So you're
No, I'm
pumping.
feeling it right here.
Yeah?
I swear,
Right, just
it's
like
so
this.
weird.
Good, now stop for a second. Stop for a second and check in with your body. What do you feel?
I feel like it's numbing, like.
I'm kind of vibrating.
So that's all your lymphatic flow.
Yeah.
Okay, good, so you just did the 8 pieces.
Look at that.
So I'm gonna wrap up with, for your body to heal itself and overcome the negative effects of dysfunction, it needs to have a constant flow of blood and nutrients to all of the tissues. So for us, Ashley might not even know this, but we go through 4 to 5 years of training. We do a clinical internship. So we do close to as much time as a medical doctor does. It's just our specialty is completely different. So we look at anatomy, biochemistry, microbiology, pathology, public health, clinical disciplines, in addition to all of the East Asian medical stuff. So we do all of that. And according to the National Institutes of Health, and this is what inspired me to do this as opposed to go back to medical school, there's few, if any, negative effects from natural medical care. There are, be careful, things like, especially when you get into supplements and herbs, because for example, like autoimmune diseases, you gotta be careful. Okay. So here, I'll end with this. So I do a $57 comprehensive wellness consultation. I put those in there. If you're interested in it, call. This is just my, my one promo, but it's basically, we do a non-invasive test, we do a non-invasive testing and screening that looks at the nervous system and blood flow. So actually there's a test that we use that was approved by the FDA for cardiologists, but they don't use it because it's a screening tool. So, and we do that as part of that. So we try and find the root cause and put together a plan. So if we can help you, we will. If we can't help you, we would let you know.
Cash, insurance?
Both. It just depends on your policy. Yeah, so the reason that I make this so inexpensive is because my mission, it's actually on the wall above my clinic, my mission is to help as many people as I can get well naturally. In the time that I'm gonna be on this earth doing this, I'm trying to touch as many people as possible. So I try to make the course of entry as limited as I can. So if you'd like to call my office, I put my cards in the plastic thing if you're interested. And then, let's see, of anything, this is the inspiration to do what you're doing, coming here every week, taking these classes, is that health problems get worse over time, they don't get better. Okay, if you follow on a certain course, that's the course it's gonna take. I believe that we should feel great. Once we improve our health, we eliminate our symptoms, because feeling great is what life's all about. I've got a lot of life to live. And so the more healthy we can do that, the more of an inspiration, the more we can live that life for everyone around us. So we've got a lot of reasons for being here. So that's important. And I don't waste anybody's time or money. If we can't help you, we let you know. We check insurances, we do all that, but if we can't help you, if I think it's beyond what we can do, I'm honest with people. And also, you don't have much to lose for $57. What's that, like 2 Starbucks? And then lastly is the mind's like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open.
Oh.
So-
I can take
Oh,
a
Frank
picture of that, I
Zappa.
like that.
And there you go. So that is my shtick for the night.
Thank you.
Thank you.